Kick off your shades, it helps see through the smoke. Cause the wicked hide behind the cloak. And if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked. So listen up, cause this hair of the dog, what's real, what ain't? Is this the fog or smog? Cause there's a difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I am Andy Kennedy. It is a beautiful morning in Canada. Sunny. It's so sunny. I had to close the door to my office because it was casting shadows on my green screen. That's a good thing. Well, sort of. Anyways, welcome. It is Fuck It Friday, as all Fridays are around here. And today, decidedly, will not be any different. We are going to have some fun today, and we have lots of groovy graphics. So I'm going to be busy on this side. But that doesn't start, of course, until I introduce my lovely and talented co-host, Miss Carrie Barber. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Andy. And yes, it is Fuck It Friday. This one, we're going to have fun with it, but we do need to have a little bit of tough love with this one because Medicare for All has been introduced, and we'll get to that. But as I was going through it and all of my excitement, and I started to think about what happened last time, oh boy, I think the problem is supporters. And I mean that in the kindest, gentlest way. I, we fucked that up last time. So now we've got another opportunity, and this one's going to be harder, and we'll go through why that is. But you can make the difference in all of this. So stay tuned. We're definitely going to go through some of this, and I want you to join this conversation. So if, of course, I start coughing. If you disagree with something I say, I posted all of my links in the chat. If there's something you don't understand, now is the time to ask the question. We will do more of this on our network because this policy, this bill is so integral to our very survival that it's important. And I really, me personally, I need you to get this because everybody that I know and love depends on it. Everybody that you know and love depends on it. And we're going to take you through all of that. In particular, you have ever uttered the phrase, well, let's just improve ACA. This is for you. Okay. So we're
this bud's for you.
Right, exactly. So some other quick things that came up. Apparently there's a petition to get Marjorie Greene out, which is weird because there are 147 seditionists still sitting in Congress right now. And every time I see some sort of performative thing about what happened on January 6th, here I go again, sorry. I wonder what it was like. I mean, I've sat in an office where you don't like your coworkers, right? You just don't get along. That guy's a jerk, whatever. None of them actually tried to kill you. And what is it like to sit in Congress and look over and go, yeah, that dude tried to have me killed, and totally be okay with it? That just, that blows my mind. So, all right.
Well, yeah. All right. And where did this come from, right? Where did this all start from, right? Because the current Biden administration is now in having a tendency to blame Joe Manchin for everything, right? This is apparently April is going to be blame Joe Manchin for everything month. So that's the reason that you can't have nice things. It's because of Joe Manchin, right? So let's get rid of the one person on the other side that we can all agree is a nut job and needs to go, right? And that will negate Joe Manchin, and then everything will be good, we can, not give you things for not that reason anymore.
Well, you don't have Trump, so you got to have a new foil. And he has been the foil. And typically what would happen is, hey, Joe, we're going to do this, and it totally makes sense, but don't worry about it. We're going to kick in some more duckies for your next re-election campaign. It's all good. We still love you to play the bad guy. So it's going to be you.
He's the Simon Cowell of Congress.
Yes, he is. And just a real quick reminder, he had a progressive challenger in the last election. So you can thank the DCCC and the DNC for giving you Joe Manchin, because they totally subverted, as they do in most cases, your progressive Democratic candidate. Everybody got that? Yeah.
Sigh.
Yeah, the chick in Arizona, what was her name? The one who did the cutesy little, no, she had a progressive challenger.
Kristen Sinema. Well, yeah. There's another thing. Let's blame a Republican, right? We'll completely ignore the fact that there were 8 Democrats that voted down, including a minimum wage raise to $15 for the stimulus package, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we were not going to talk about them because they're on our team.
Right. You're not being a team player, Andy. You're just not.
I am not. There is no I in team. Although there is a me, kind of.
Kind of, sort of hidden in the middle there. So, yeah. All right, we have a lot to talk about, and some of this is going to be complex. Some of you may be hearing this for the first time, so hang on. We're going to get there. So just real quick, good morning, Mike. Thank you for joining us this morning. Everyone else who's joining us, really appreciate it. And again, if I say something you don't understand or you disagree with, post it in the chat. Let's talk about it now. We got to get it out now. So if you are at all a fan, or maybe just Medicare curious, let's go through some of the bills. And it was interesting because there was just, for lack of a better term, a huge dump of healthcare bills that went through on the 17th, last day of the Ides of March, which I thought was appropriate.
Maybe we should refer to them as a movement.
A movement.
Instead of a dump.
Right. Well, with them was Medicare for All, improved national Medicare for All. So, Andy, this will be the first graphic that I gave you, and I am definitely going in order today to make Andy's life a little bit easier.
That's right. I don't want to have to Al Pacino you.
Right.
You're out of order.
Yes, exactly. Good movie quote. And I will fix these graphics. I was just in my excitement last night. I was like, yay, let's put it out there. So one of the resources that you should have in your bookmarks is congress.gov. All bills that get introduced either into the House or to the Senate are listed here. And then everything that happens to that bill gets tracked here. Now, what's supposed to happen is within 3 days of a bill being introduced, the text of that bill should be made available. This is all part of your First Amendment rights. You should have all of this. If a bill gets introduced by somebody, a House member or Senate member, and there is no text, you can contact their office and get a copy of the text. So the reason why that's important is because the marketing that they do on mainstream media, corporate-owned media, is not necessarily accurate. Shocker. So
the hell you say.
Right, it's true. So this is why I always go out and read the text of the bill. It's in English. It's not that hard. You can do this. I swear you can do this. So read the text of the bill, and then you'll be able to see in a lot of cases where what MSNBC or Fox covers is not exactly what's in that bill, right? Just like with Biden's stimulus COVID relief, what they said and what was actually in it, 2 different things. So this is going to be no different. And the text is not yet available. So because the text is not yet available, I am not going to cover today what the bill says about how to pay for it, because there are two different answers here. I'm going to cover the right answer, and then when the text of the bill becomes available and they do all their tax gyrations, we'll cover that too. But I really need you to get the fundamentals of how we pay for this, and we'll definitely go through that, okay? So when I did pull up this bill, and this is HR means it was a House bill, House Resolution 1976. That's important because it's always bothered me when other journalists cover bills and don't put the bill number in there. That's a fundamental flaw of journalism. Put the bill number in there so people can go and see it and see for themselves. What a concept.
Yes,
So,
and it's interesting that that bill number was the year of the bicentennial.
isn't it? I wonder, because this Jayapal actually said it was going to come out last month and it didn't. So I've been waiting for it. And I wonder if they were waiting, number one, for all these other health bills to come out, and two, if they were waiting specifically for that number. So
That's very possible.
yeah. So yeah, very clever. In any case, there's something that I really need you to see here, and I called it out on the side, which you may or may not be able to read, but it's in the latest actions. And this is something that I personally have never seen before on a bill. This text, maybe you have. If you have, let me know, but I have never seen this. So the last time Medicare for All was introduced was last year. And the way this works is if a bill does not get through all the committees and does not get voted on, it dies. And sometimes even if it gets through the entire chamber, whether it's the Senate chamber or the House chamber, and does not move on and get signed by the president, it dies. So you have to reintroduce it every year or every session. So Medicare for All, last introduced, went away, and that was 1384, 87, I can't recall. But here it is again in a new iteration, and I anticipate that everything will be the same on it, but we'll see as soon as the text comes out. But the text that was introduced with the listing, this is what I'm pointing to. So it talks about how many committees this bill needs to go through before it can ever come to a floor vote. So it's got to go through all of these committees. The committees need to pass it and send it on to the next one. But this is the piece that is different. At the end of this text, it says it gives all the power to Nancy Pelosi. It says it's going to pass through all of these committees, and then it is the timeline on this is for a period subsequently determined by the speaker. This means that Nancy Pelosi can hold this up at any point in its journey. She could stall it, she could slow walk it, she could make sure it never gets to committee and it never goes through all of these committees that it needs to do. So the last bill, the last Medicare for All bill, had 2 committees that it was assigned to. So you could take this one of 2 ways. They weren't serious about it, and it was just a performative thing. And as Jayapal and others have said, it was the first time we actually had a committee discussion about Medicare for All. And you remember we had Addie Barkin and all of those witnesses who were testifying in front of that committee. Great start, went nowhere. So in this one, you actually have all of these committees. So you could take it as they mean it this time, it's really serious, or I'm a little more cynical. I'm thinking that they're putting it through all of these committees because they're not serious about it. So in the levers of politics, you have several different things that you can do to stall a bill. Like we just talked about Joe Manchin. You make Joe Manchin the foil. You work out an agreement with him in advance. Hey, this pork project that you like, we'll forward that amendment if you will kill this bill for us. Happens all the time. In this case, I see all of these committees and this language added at the end as a real critical piece to how this will not move. And this is why, as we go through the conversation today, you become supremely important. You as an activist, you as an advocate, you become the catalyst to move this along, to move Pelosi, to move the committees, to move all of these people. Because remember, they're all Democrats, right? It's Democratic chairs, Democratic majority. All of this should never be held up. This should go like that. We should have this through the House in a matter of days. And I'm not exaggerating, days. Instead, what I anticipate is you're going to see months of foot dragging. So I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. So
well, and that is, you know, if you follow the logical conclusion and the steps of what's happened, right? The ACA was brought in under Obama. It allowed Americans to at least have the facade of having a better healthcare system, or at least to sign up for something that was quote unquote better than what the options they had. Right. But that was Obama was a Democrat, right? The ACA came in. You know, Trump's idea, oh, you're going to have so much better healthcare. Nobody's going to have better healthcare than us, blah, 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 right? And with the express option that they were just going to get rid of it, you know, and you're back on your own again, right? So that precedent, that timeline now has been set. And people have to remember that timeline and understand that, you know, what makes this administration better than the last one, right? Improvements. The only way to make improvements on this is to, and this is the point that I've always talked about, is what you should watch for, is if Biden does anything that costs the donor class money, right? Any improvement to the ACA right now, real improvement, not just, you know, performative improvement or language or that might look good on paper, right? Anything that's actually going to help people is now has the potential to cost the donor class money, right? So this is a very big point in Medicare for All's push, right? It's going to be laid bare for everyone to see. You're going to see the pro side and the anti side and what they're all lining up to do. And it should be evident to everyone if you've got your eyes open, right?
It should be. And I think as we go through this, you're going to see people that you thought were like you, were liberal, really aren't. And we see this all the time. We just saw this in another example, like when you deal with racism, it's pretty stark. You have, you know, your white allies who fall away when things get a little hard. They weren't really your allies. You just didn't know it. And in Medicare for All, you're going to see the same thing. A lot of these blue jumpsuit folks are willing to trash you and your family because they don't want to give up what they see as their right and their privilege so that everybody could have it. They really don't care about that. And that is what we're talking about. So I'm going to get to comments here on Mike. Mike, he reiterates the point that if you say anything bad about a D that voted against the minimum wage increase, then it's your fault and the balance of power shifts in the midterms. That's exactly right. Exactly right. It's your fault, even though you have no power. They have power. We have limited influence. So yeah, and I also agree that they may be trying to torpedo this bill, but there are a couple other bills that I thought were interesting when we get to the blue jumpsuit thing. You know who Katie Porter is, right? That badass representative from California who's totally a champion of the people. Okay. Yeah, so she introduced at the same time HR 480. Go and take a look at this bill because as I was reading it, I was like, what the fuck, Katie? What are you doing?
Yes.
So
she's an advocate for the people, but only certain people.
Yeah, and she has really good sound bites and, you know, all of this. Here's what she did. So in the long list of healthcare bills that I talked about, I have a couple of them, and her bill is one of them. This is HR 480. It's a Medicare Economic Security Solutions Act. So what she has proposed is that there's a penalty, a 10% penalty, if you're 64 and a half years old and you wait, let's say you're still working and you have your employer's insurance and you don't sign up for Medicare right away, then the next year when you go to sign up or whenever you sign up, you are hit with a penalty for a period of a year or two, I think it is, particularly on Part D. Part D stands for drug. That's that part that Bush came in and advocated for. It's the handout to Big Pharma. So on all of these, if you don't sign up right away, then when you do finally sign up, then you get hit with this huge penalty, which is right now 10%. And so you get an extra 10%, which is great for our people on a fixed income, right? Screw those people. So Katie is suggesting that we raise the penalty. Like, why? Why are we raising the penalty on people? And
which is a question that you could go back and ask the question, why is it even there to begin with?
Thank you. Right. And so the argument behind this is, well, we want to guide behaviors. So rather than the carrot, they're going to use a full-on 2x4 to hit our seniors with, not just seniors, by the way, disabled people.
The carrot is still there. It's the 2x4 is applied to the other end.
True. So Katie's bill not just affects seniors, also our disabled people, because there are a number of people who qualify after the 2-year waiting period on disability for Medicare. They get hit with the same penalty if they don't know that they can sign up right away. Or let's say, like in my situation, I couldn't afford Part D, so I don't have it. So what's going to happen is when I do finally, if all of these laws are in place, when I do finally sign up for Part D, I'm going to be hit with 10, 15% penalties every year for a period of years. So that's your disabled veterans, that's your regular disabled people, that's your seniors, fixed incomes. Way to go, Katie. So
good job, capitalist.
Yeah, exactly. So I also included in the links a bunch of different bills that came in. There were a couple that I thought were pretty interesting. The Senate counterpart to Medicare for All is it starts with an S because it's Senate, S97. So you can look up that one. The text is still not available. What that indicates to me is they may actually be serious about this because public support is growing. And when I look at a bill in the House, I look for the counterpart in the Senate, because typically what happens is they take the two and each side negotiates and then they reconcile into one bill, and that's how it gets passed. So to me, that is a hopeful thing. What had happened is in the past, it had always been Bernie Sanders who was the author of the Senate counterpart. This time it's not. So as soon as that text becomes available, I will do a follow-up and we'll go through both of these, and I promise it'll be fun. The other person in this that I thought was interesting was Brad Schneider. He's out of the 11th Congressional District in Illinois. I know Brad really, really well. Not personally, professionally, can't stand him. And let me tell you why. Brad Schneider sits on the Ways and Means Committee, and last time Medicare for All went through, he slow-walked it. He held the hearings and blah, 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 but he slow-walked it. And here's why I think that should be an ethics violation. His own wife deals in stock and other assets, financial assets for the insurance companies. He is personally profiting off of the work that they do, but for some reason, he didn't recuse himself of any of these conversations or his influence or his ability to walk these through. Yeah. And Brad Schneider, so that is just one item on my long list of problems with Brad Schneider. And I know even in Illinois, when he had done some really shady things, and I started calling him out for it, I got called a bomb thrower because, oh my God, you can't talk about a establishment dem like that. So, hi, Brad. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Hopefully. Right. So Mike is correcting me. I called it torpedoing. He said it's tar pit. So Mike put in the chat, what is tar pit? do you mean just getting it stuck? Is that what you're talking about? So I'm assuming that's what it is, but
we'll wait.
Yeah. Come on, Mike, get it together. So okay, so that is the high level overview of what's going on in Congress right now. And I have an alert set, and you can set an alert for any of these bills. I have an alert set for both Medicare for All and Senate Counterpoint. So anything that comes up, I will immediately get an email to go out and check and see what did they do now. So this one's of personal import to me because I kind of like people and I don't want people to die, which, by the way, Andy, did you see the headlines? They had discovered that 1/3 of the US deaths related to COVID were directly correlated to a lack of health insurance.
You know, I saw that yesterday, and I had a number of conversations with different people through the day saying, did you know? Right. And the reaction from every single one of those people was kind of like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Exactly. That is not a shock to anyone. And that is so telling. And I would even wager, even though I'm not a big betting person, I would wager that the next tier down of those deaths were people who had shitty insurance.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Well, as a parent, let's say you get a cough, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have any insurance because you lost your job, right? You've got kids to feed. You got to figure out how to get all this together. Who the fuck has enough money to go see a doctor, right? So you're making choices, right? Because you're a parent. Mm-hmm. And, hindsight is 20/20. Had I known that I would have ended up on a ventilator in the OR or just died in my bed because I, couldn't leave the house. Okay, maybe I would have made that choice just to stay alive. But, you deal with statistics and you got to take care of your family, right? You got to you're as a parent, that's your number one priority. And mm-hmm. parents are dying because of it, right?
Exactly. And I need to back up a little bit and let people know what my credentials are because there's a legal component here. And then also I'm not just a pundit telling you shit. But Andy, to your point, when I was working professionally as an independent health insurance consultant, I cannot tell you how many times I had somebody standing there crying, going, my uncle or my dad or my mom had cancer and they made the choice to die rather than leave us with medical bills. And it was constantly, at least once a week, if not sometimes multiple times during the week. That's way too much. So let me get to the legal disclaimer here. I am not now a licensed insurance consultant. I let my credentials lapse. I do feel very strongly that if you have any questions about your personal insurance situation, you find an independent insurance consultant. This is somebody who knows the law, knows the products that are available, and can tailor it to fit your unique situation. You want to watch out for the ones that work for the insurance companies, because obviously they're going to kind of shoehorn you into their company's policies so they can get a higher commission. So be aware of that. In particular, if you have an insurance agent who is pushing you towards, if you're on Medicare, if they're pushing you towards an Advantage plan, be careful. And the reason for that is the Advantage plans across the United States, you had 9 different states file lawsuits against those insurance companies that offer Advantage plans, which was another creation of the Bush administration. And they were suing these insurance companies for defrauding seniors. So what looks like on the surface an easy plan where you just make your premium policy payments and then there's no cost to you actually costs you more in the long run. So that's my first legal disclaimer. Second is, the reason I know about all of this is Number one, I was hired by a really, I'm not going to name them, but they're really big insurance company that has a color in its name to to help train employees
Let's
across.
see, which one would that be?
I cannot name them, but I was hired to train all of their employees in 7 major states at the event of the ACA coming through, Obamacare. And it was interesting to me because they had to train all of their own people on what that law was, what it said, what it actually did. And oh, now you actually have to talk to customers and they don't know anything about insurance. So it was my job to really quickly tool all of that in. And I wrote about my experience sitting in a boardroom with these senior executives when the decision came down from the Supreme Court that ACA would stand, because so much money had been poured in from the insurance companies to stop it. And they figured the Supreme Court was in their pocket. It wasn't. Oh boy, that day was like, it was amazing. And then having to go through and help a company actually understand that, number one, you have actual people as customers. 2, you've got new customers coming in who have never had insurance before in their life. So,
and they might even have pre-existing conditions.
Right. And I remember sitting in it was this huge like warehouse room where all the people who had been there to deny coverage. So what used to happen before, when you had a pre-existing condition, there were pages upon pages of issues that you could deny someone coverage for, either treatment for that specific issue or deny a policy outright. And imagine pages upon pages on legal size paper, 6-point font, 6 columns per page. That's how many conditions, everything from allergies to a cancer diagnosis, thyroid issues. And I remember looking at this lovely person who was making minimum wage to tell other people that they could not get insurance. And I looked at her and I looked around the room. I said, can you point to anyone in this room who might pass this screening? And she honestly looked at me and she said, none of us, no one here. And that was very telling. So all of this was a life-altering experience for me. And it prompted me to go out and get the education and certification and pass all of the requirements, legal requirements, fiduciary requirements, to become an independent agent. And from there, I was invited to the Obama White House, and I wrote about actually unwittingly becoming a whistleblower while I was sitting there, and I had Valerie Jarrett ready to strangle me. So it was an interesting moment. So I know the ACA better than some of the people who are out there advocating for it, far better than the people who are telling you that we should fix it. And I wrote about what's wrong with it. The problem with ACA from a financial standpoint is not just that it's a fundamental redistribution of wealth from people to these companies, but our government itself every quarter puts out a report through the CMS, and you can go look it up, where the cost savings that are realized through the ACA are by reducing payments to doctors and hospitals. On the surface, that may sound good, but what that actually does is it made all of our doctors lose their ability to stay independent. They had to close their private practices and go into these hospital groups. That is a consolidation. That's bad for the free market. That's bad for the consumer. And then you have these hospitals who are struggling to pay their bills. So what they end up doing is putting a membership cost. The minute you walk into the door, you're charged $200. They start padding their prices. All of these sorts of things were happening. And that's what we see today. So the ACA itself is nothing more, and it started this way, it was nothing more than a heritage plan from these ultra neocons to give money to industry donors. So Andy, there's your donor thing again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Exactly.
So if you have any questions about the ACA, or you want to come at me and say, ACA, let's fix it. First, I'm going to throat punch you. Second, I am going to handle all of that argument fundamentally, and I can do it from a conservative point of view, or I can do it from progressive. I'll let you choose, and we'll just tear that all down, because it's all utter bullshit. And I need you to understand this if you're a supporter of Medicare for all, because just like we saw with the Trump administration and the fascists, they're going to throw out all of these little arguments to distract you and get you tied in knots. And if you cannot shut them down quickly, we are never going to get through this. Okay. So
exactly. Because they have unlimited resources when it comes to shiny objects.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Hey,
oh,
yeah.
Neera Tanden.
Yeah.
Joe Manchin.
Yeah. And Neera Tanden's tweets, not her policy. Right. I went at it with Neera Tanden when she did her CAT plan, Medicare for some people, or whatever the hell they called it. And I
Medicare for some people.
Right. And we had words. I was like, Neera, you're lying. You're literally lying to people. This is not how she got hot. So you need to.
Did she push you or hit you?
A girl would not hit me. That would be the last thing. That would be the last thing. Okay. All right. So, Andy.
Yes.
Next slide. This is
okay.
ACA. So while we're talking about the ACA, let's put up some numbers here. These are real numbers. And I want to give a shout out to the graphic designer, because she puts these slides out, and I think they're beautiful. They're just absolutely beautiful. She does a wonderful job. And this is at connectthedotsusa.com. And she did a wonderful job of updating these with 2019 numbers. So she's already doing the hard work for you. Go out and get her slides. She's got them all. You can download one, you can download all of them. They're wonderful. And if you need help speaking to a slide, let me know. I will help you. I will send you my notes. I will send you all of my citation sources. I will help you even do a role play. We need to get this right.
And it's brilliant. It's brilliant because, when I first saw it, you know what it reminded me of? An ad for some travel agencies, all-inclusive vacations. Mm-hmm. Right? So white people are going to look at it.
Thank you. Okay, so here's a trivia question for you. Medical tourism. This is when you need a surgery done, and you're going to go and get the best care that you could possibly get at a reasonable price. Right, that money can buy. What's the number one country for medical tourism?
Let's see. Congo?
No. And you are nowhere close geographically or otherwise.
That was more like a setup for you, Carrie.
I know. So last year it was Taiwan. The year before that it was Singapore, and then Thailand. So it's usually one of those countries where you're going to get the absolute best outcome of care, and it'll be affordable. So it's cheaper for you to fly there and get it done than here. Most Americans, because we're still on that exceptional kick, say, well, it's the US. No, it's not. First, the outcome and quality of care here has declined so far that we are behind African countries now. And most Americans themselves, like for dental, we go to Mexico, right? So this is what's happening. The US medical care, I'm not talking about necessarily our individual doctors. I'm talking about the constraints that we put on our professionals, from college debt to insurance requirements to now you can't have your own practice, and the insurance companies are standing over your doctors and your CNAs and saying, you get 30 seconds. And why are you only seeing 20 patients in a day? You should be seeing 200. All of those constraints have caused us to drop to such a level that our quality of care is just absolute shit in most cases, particularly if you have crappy insurance, right? So,
or none.
If you have none, good luck to you.
Yeah.
So this chart is a really good example of the price disparity. And it's not that we have better equipment. It's not that we have better training. None of that is true. This is just because we have unregulated regulation. Regulation protects the free market from monopolies. We have unregulated cost constraints.
Mhm.
Okay? That's all that this is. And these are the costs that come through with insurance or without. Got it? So one point that I really need to make, and I cannot stress this enough, insurance is not about healthcare. It is not about health outcomes. The reason why I had to go through the training and I was held, like everyone else, to a standard of fiduciary responsibility, that means financial, meaning that if I did something incorrectly with premium payments, I could be fined, was it $250,000 and 10 years in jail. I want you to understand that. That was the level that I was held to, a far higher level than somebody who manages your 401k. The reason for that is an insurance policy is a financial contract. It has nothing to do with health. It is the same kind of contract that you have for your car. All it is there to do is to offer some limited protection against medical bankruptcy. And I say limited because if you don't have, like, if you're getting insurance through your employer or you buy it from the healthcare marketplace and you don't have an additional supplemental policy in like a catastrophic area, catastrophic plans are those really crappy plans that only cover a break, a burn, a fracture, cancer, heart attack, or stroke. That's it. That's all they cover. If you don't have that, while you still have your insurance policy from your employer, or you bought it outright, you will have an issue and a risk of medical bankruptcy. It will happen. And the reason is, just like your car, if you buy a car and you have regular insurance and then you purchase gap insurance, the catastrophic plan pays that huge deductible for the other one and ancillary costs, maybe some out of pocket. So this is all to illustrate to you that insurance policies are not about care at all. Not at all. It's all about money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
they're all private. They're all private corporations, right?
Yeah.
And excuse me, insurance company is not going to do anything that is not profitable.
Right? They don't make profit by paying out claims. They
Mm-hmm.
make profit by denying claims and denying care.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Which in every other country in the world, including mine, it's not a for-profit industry, right? Which is why the rest of the world doesn't have to pay for healthcare, because it is funded by the federal governments of all of the countries involved, that other than the United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real big difference.
Right. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. This one's a little depressing, but you need to know where you are. And a lot of the things that we have seen over the last few years, particularly under the previous administration, are directly resulting from this scenario. So I did not update the numbers for this because I wanted to show where we were. Now, Andy, you said hindsight is 2020. So these were the numbers in 2016. The 2019 numbers are off the chart bad. They're just the life expectancy in the US has declined every year since 2016, every year.
And this is still pre-pandemic.
Yes, pre-pandemic. So the segment at the bottom of this chart, I think, is where I really want to focus, because when we look at the Proud Boys, when we look at the Oath Keepers, when we look at white supremacists and all of these sorts of things, that is a learned and taught behavior. But before they ever get to those fake selling points about white supremacy, they have already been introduced to the myth of the US economy, the American dream. If I do everything right, if I pull myself up by my bootstraps, if I just work hard, if I just do all of these sorts of things, then I will succeed. And none of that is happening. people are failing through no fault of their own, but because you have media out there telling them that everything's fine, it's fine, the economy's great, look at the stock market, then they can't help but think, I have done something wrong, I'm a failure, the system is rigged, all of these things. And that goes into the death of despair. So you see people who are self-medicating through heroin, through cocaine, through crack, through alcohol, through abusive behaviors with other people, and all of that anger just builds up and up and up. And then you've got the news media telling them that it's this brown person crossing the border or whatever the new thing is. And that accelerates the agitation, which actually changes brain chemistry. So what we see here is more people are committing suicide. Like the suicide rate among family farmers is unbelievable. And we're not talking about that. We're not talking about any of those effects. But the key point that I want to make here is the third leading cause of death in 12 states, I think it's 12 states now, and it's the fourth leading cause in 35 states, is cirrhosis and sepsis. Sepsis is a common bacterial infection. So what that means is you get a cut and you just let it go, and it gets infected and you let it go because you're
make sure that you define that it's highly treatable. Like there's absolutely no reason why that should be something that exists.
Right.
At all.
Right. And for 4 years in a row in Georgia is the third leading cause of death. Georgia. Right. This is an American city or more American state. And most people still don't recognize that Doctors Without Borders, that group, the humanitarian group of doctors from around the world that goes into a country, particularly a developing country, and starts to treat people who have no access to healthcare. They're here in the United States. They operate in many different states because we have people who line up for basic care. And they're going to these doctors who come here from around the world to treat people, right? And this is in the wealthiest country in the entire world. This is happening under for-profit insurance. Okay, so on this chart, to me, it was very telling when I would go out and give talks, is on one end of the spectrum, the death rates for death of despair, these are white middle-aged men in particular, white middle-aged men who are supposed to be at the prime of their earning potential, who are not. And then at the other end of the spectrum, with pregnancy-related mortality rates, mortality meaning death, are Black women. So when you have these two demographics at such high rates, that is indicative of the population as a whole, right? Everybody except your member of Congress. So
and lobbyists.
Yeah, and lobbyists. So that is one of the big points that I really need progressives to get here, particularly when you're talking to a conservative audience or a family member. This right here is where you start to make some headway and getting people to understand where we are, where the narrative, the paid corporate narrative says we are, and the reality completely different. And this is where you start to get to that, because everybody feels it. We all feel it. So, all right, the next one, Andy, this is prescription prices. And this was something that I absolutely loved when I was doing the work of independent insurance. So there's this tiny little loophole in the FDA law. And I'm not gonna lie, I exploited the hell out of it. So it says that you can import prescription drugs from anywhere in the world so long it was under a 90-day supply, right? And it was for personal use. It was not for distribution. So just like your drug dealer, you have a little bit of weed on you for personal use, you're fine. If you get a big big brick of it, then now you're looking at jail. Okay.
Yeah, if you got a garbage bag, you might be in trouble.
Okay, so what I used to do is there was a little company that I will not name because it was a quietly kept secret. And what they would do is if I had a customer, and I did have a customer who was spending $3,000 a month on a fixed income for their prescriptions. And this woman was she was about to lose her home. She was crying. She was just beside herself. So I'm like, okay, give me the prescription names, the amount that you're taking, what did your doctor prescribe? So I got that list and I went to this little company and I said, here is this person, here's what her doctor prescribed, globally source it. And the reason we could do that is 95% of all the source materials to make all medications come from China. China sends those source materials to India to put them together. They are not made here in the United States. I think there's only 2 medications that are made in the United States. One is a thyroid, and the other I think is a diabetic, and those are at Baxter Healthcare in Northern Illinois. The rest of it is all overseas. So the drugs that you are paying for, the brand name, the generic, whatever, they're all coming from India, and they get shipped around the world. The difference is we pay exponentially more for our prescriptions than the rest of the world. Why? Because they negotiate with the drug companies. We do not. We have a laissez-faire attitude, and here's what you see. So if you're a conservative and you're constantly preaching free market with no regulation, this is you. You did this to us. I hope that's clear, because the rest of the world actually says, okay, we're gonna negotiate on behalf of our people, because this is a little bit excessive, particularly when you understand where the research and development for these medications comes from. It comes from us. We fund that. And then these companies take that information and go, great, we're gonna make a profit off it, and we're gonna do all the manufacturing or outsource the manufacturing, and then we'll bring it back and everybody's happy. But the rest of the world puts price controls on it. We do not. There are only narrow portions where we do, and that's right now under the VA and under Medicare. So we have some constraints, but these medications that I put up here are the 4 most common, but this is happening on all of them. Just so you understand where you are. If you said free market, no regulation, you are the one who kind of bent us over here. So please stop. And this is part and parcel. I'm leading into what Medicare for All actually does as a policy. It is not a government takeover. It is not privatization or making it going from private to government control. None of that. It is simply basic regulations to bring us in line with the rest of the world. That's it. That is it. It is not, we're not taking over doctors and hospitals, and we're not even taking over the pharmacy, the pharmaceutical companies. We're not. All we're saying is, hey, can we stop getting screwed? Can you give us the same price that maybe you give Spain and Switzerland and South Africa? Can we do that? That's all Medicare for All does. It is not socialism in any way, shape, or form. It's a little bit of regulation. That's it. And for my conservative friends, regulation is what creates the free market. Sorry.
Well, and it gives it a chance to be sustainable, right? Mm-hmm. Unregulated capitalism destroys itself.
Yeah.
Right? The only thing that saves capitalism is heavily regulated, right? In every aspect.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Kiss it goodbye, because it'll just eat itself.
Yeah, and then you're only going to have members of Congress who have good care. So I hold that thought on Congress, because I'm going to get back to it. So Andy, let's go to the next slide. Just to drive this point home about the disparity and where all this money is going. So again, I'm going to lean on conservatives, because I know that liberals think like conservatives, even though they don't want to admit it. And so I really need you to get this. So much money is hemorrhaging out of the system because of the deregulation in a lot of areas. And the Affordable Care Act and prior facilitated all of this, right? So if you've ever tried to find your own insurance, you will totally agree that it's complex, costly, and I like how she puts it, cruel, because it absolutely is. Because I would sit with clients who would say, well, I've already made my choice. I'm going to take this bronze level policy at this particular, and I would take them through and say, okay, this sounds good. We know your situation. Let's put it out in a chart and see what your risk is, your financial risk, because again, insurance is about finances, not about healthcare. Let's see what your financial risk is at the end of the year on that bronze level crappy plan. If you're going to go with that, then you need to have some supplemental to go with it too. If you don't, here's your risk. And it was always 10 to 20 times more because they were trying to do it on their own, not understanding how insurance works, what the purpose of it is. So from a budgetary standpoint for your household, it's so confusing. And then on top of it, there are built-in loopholes for the insurance company. So all those death panels and things like that, all of that's built in. And here you can see where the cost is going. So when they like to trot out the price and the cost of Medicare for all, we save money. I know that price tag looks really, really big, and it's bigger than any of us can really conceive and conceptualize, but we will save money. And that should tell you how bad the current system is from a state level standpoint to a national level standpoint to your household budget. Think about it this way, Medicare for all. If we did Medicare for all tomorrow, which we can, your property taxes would drop overnight. So if you're a homeowner and you're paying property taxes, between 40 and 60% like that is reduced. And the reason for that is your state is paying for insurance for all of your state employees, including your elected officials, and you're also paying for your neighboring states, true story, and you're paying for members of Congress, and oh, by the way, every federal worker too. So all of that is coming from your property taxes. So suddenly, if we enacted Medicare for all tomorrow, everybody who owns a home, or if you own an apartment building and you have renters, overnight you save 40 to 60%. What's that worth to you? And
on top of the other savings, on a macroeconomic level that could be realized as well, because if what Medicare for all does, and this, I am not saying anything that isn't true, because I live in a country that has free healthcare, right? And then the way that the system works is that the doctors, the nurses, the pharmaceutical countries, they all basically work for the Canadian government, right? The Canadian funds those projects. It is not run by the government. It is funded by the government, right? Doctors are specifically able to control their own practices. The people that work in hospitals, the people that run those hospitals run it the way they see fit, but they are paid by the federal government, right? So if everyone in that industry is just getting paid by the federal government, you're completely eliminating the middleman, which is the insurance companies and all of those people that always take their cut, and all of those layers of people that have to get paid, right? So when you look at it, and there was a study done, we've talked about this study before, that was a right-wing study of a group that was funded by the Koch brothers and their foundation, that said over a certain time period, the cost of insuring everybody in the country 100% was cheaper than the current system that causes medical bankruptcy, right? Like that's mind-blowing, and it should make everybody think, what the hell are we doing to make a few CEOs of the health industry rich people?
Right.
Like, it
So
doesn't
Andy,
have to be that way.
here's the big question that I really want you to get to, because this is so important, and this is where I have the tough love for progressives, because I heard very few of you with the ability to answer this question. And if you can't get this right, then we are all in big trouble. And I need you to get it right to the level that your life depends on it, and everybody you know, their life depends on it, because it does. That is the reality. If you cannot answer this one question, then I need you to sit the fuck down and figure it out. So Andy, how do we pay for it?
We don't. The government does.
Well, what do you mean? What about inflation? What does this mean, Andy? Don't we need to raise taxes? Don't we need to go through these complex gyrations and calculations to raise taxes the way that the bill did last time? What about pay-go, Andy? What do you mean? How do we pay for it?
Every time that something happens in the United States that causes the federal government to have to put money, like a natural disaster, like wildfires in California, right? Like floods that happened, in Katrina in New Orleans. Anytime like something like that happens, isn't it strange that somehow the Federal Reserve can go into the green room and search through the cushions of the couch in there and find $2 trillion to pay for that, and nobody says, well, who are we going to raise taxes on, right? Every time your federal government spends its new money into the system, and it's basically just marking up the accounts of the participant banks that have accounts at the Fed in a positive direction. It's all just keystrokes. It doesn't mean anything. It's not coming from quote unquote income tax dollars. You didn't pay for it. Federal government did. Everything it spends. There's no reason to ever ask that question. And if you don't believe me, there's a real good book out there that has been on the New York bestseller list for quite a while now. It's called The Deficit Myth. Mm-hmm. If you need to see some reviews about it, talk to Ice Cube.
Right. So the other part of this is, wait a second. What about all of those people in the insurance company, the American jobs in the insurance company? And I want people to understand that insurance companies have outsourced or offshored jobs for Americans for so long that the millions upon millions of jobs that the donor class is trying to defend, only 400,000 are U.S. workers, and these are mostly minimum wage workers. So
exactly.
We just had people say that they are not worth a raise of $7.25 or whatever it is in their situation, but we're just going to keep them languishing on. Medicare for All includes not only transition payments for doctors and hospitals, but some really good financial assistance for those 400,000 workers who have some serious skills in talking people off a ledge and walking through complex contracts. Those are some serious skills. So according to MMT and Warren Mosler, this is also a non-inflationary event because you are transitioning these people.
Yes, it's a deflationary event. It actually, because of the situations that occur through this, right? People's taxes not only will go down on a state level, because the states are not going to be on the hook for the amount of money that they needed to contribute to keep this system, for lack of a better word, afloat, right? There is also going to have to be an adjustment in taxes to lessen the burden on people in order to basically change the amount of income in federal tax dollars to allow more money to stay in the system, basically, without getting into to the weeds too far into it. So Americans are going to see a drop in their taxes the minute that ACA, or the minute that the Medicare for All comes into play. Right?
Yeah. So the piece that I'm waiting for when this text comes out, we know that they're going to have to go through this complex funding model because the rest of us are ignorant about funding at a federal level. So they're going to have to do that the way that they did last time. But I really don't want you as an advocate to get stuck on that, because that is a deflective conversation and it's meant to stall it. What you need to understand on a fundamental level, and I did this with my congressman, and I tell you, his face went white and his jaw dropped. And I had witnesses when he asked me, how do we pay for it? And I'm like, the same way we pay for your insurance. And he was like, what? I'm like, federal appropriations. If you cannot say that and say it with confidence and push back on that, and you don't really understand how it works, you have to do your homework, because all of this other funding model that they're going to come out with, none of it's necessary. Absolutely none of it is necessary. It's meant to deflect. So get this right. There were so many of you who had no understanding, didn't know it, thought that the federal budget was like your household budget, and were celebrating, oh, it's going to raise taxes on the wealthy. No. None of that is necessary in a country where today we have told Wall Street, and it's still there, we'll give you $1 trillion a day if you need it. That is still on the table for them. In that particular scenario, if you cannot address how we pay for a program like Medicare for All that will save your ass, then you need to get it right. And we will help you through all of it. But I tell you, I am personally so out of patience with a lot of you, because you didn't take the time to understand the policy and the financial pushback that we really got very, very little done last time. And we need to get it now. There is no next time, now.
Exactly. The last 4 years is a perfect indication of how federal financing works. You need just to open your eyes and look, right? If you are in the camp that thinks, well, my taxes are going to go up to have to pay for Medicare for All, well, then you've forgotten that in 2017, Trump gave a huge tax break to rich people, and nobody ever asked how you're going to pay for it. And nobody else's taxes went up to pay for it. So if Medicare for All becomes a thing in the United States, we never had to raise taxes to pay for anything before.
Right.
Why would you think that it would have to be a thing now? Right? You never have to worry about taxing rich people to pay for things. We should tax the hell out of rich people because they're too rich. And that's the only reason.
Right. Taxes are fundamentally, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andely, but taxes are fundamentally there to guide behaviors on a federal level. State and federal are not the same. So on a federal level, when we're taxing the rich, we're trying to guide their behavior in a more positive way. That's it.
Absolutely. Right. The tax code currently allows most rich people to not pay any tax, right? Despite what they claim the rate is, because of the loopholes and the way the system is so convoluted that if you really want to, you can get just look at your past president, right? As an example, the buffoon, the orange buffoon, was able to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. That's just the way it is. The problem is you're taxing the rich people because they're too rich, because they have so much money that they're able to influence politicians and policy to continue to enrich themselves with more money because of greed.
Absolutely.
Right.
So real quick, I want to get to some of the comments because some of you are just downright hilarious here. So Tony was really close on the medical question. Medical tourism, he put in Mexico. So you were right on dental. That was right. And then Mike Toller says hindsight is 2020, but looking back, it's still a bit fuzzy. Quoting Megadeth. Good job. Gold star for you. And then Dave watching us on our YouTube channel. He has a really good point here. That's a distinction that folks don't understand. Healthcare isn't going to be ran by the government. It's funded by you, and not you and your taxes. It's you who create the value of the US dollar and our economy through what you produce. And what you produce can be anything from your work. It can be art, it can be culture, it can be your sense of community, from a community garden to feeding the homeless. All of that goes into the growth of our GDP and the value of our dollar.
Right.
Got it?
Did you know that for an example, if there is a major oil spill somewhere in the world and there is a cleanup crew that has to be called to clean up that spill, and so wherever the whatever entity is paying for this and paying for these workers to clean up the oil and save animals and spending huge amounts of money to do that's a positive thing in GDP.
Yeah. Imagine doing the right thing for people is actually, wow, that's amazing. So we've run over today, but this was important. And I know that we are going to have more conversations about this. In particular, I'm going to update my numbers so that I can show you based on the 2021, like a silver level plan that your employer might purchase for you, or you might get on healthcare.gov. I'm going to take you through the exact financials, and then I will take you through the financials that they present. I'm assuming there's going to be some tax apportionment for you as a individual citizen. Last time it was if you were retired and you're paying, A, B, and then your letter plan, which is usually about $300 or $400 per person per month. The way that Medicare worked last time was if you were making under 25,000 from income, not from retirement or pension, 25,000 from income, then your cost was zero. So your $300 a month premium plus Part A and B went away as a senior. You paid zero. The rest of us had a 6% on your gross, your net. So I'll make sure I get that right. So that actually cut your shared responsibility payment by down to a fourth of what you're paying through your employer. Your employer went from 80% of the cost down to 9% of the cost. So when we talk about small businesses, all of that. So we'll go through all of those numbers because they're complex and they can make your head spin. But the overarching point is none of that is necessary. None of it is necessary. We can install and effect this through, number one, executive order, through a pen stroke, and we can pay for it today and do all of this without raising a dime of taxes. And if you don't understand that, you're going to have a really hard time with this going forward, and you are going to cause more harm than good. So thank you, Andy, and we'll rely on you as well as some other experts to help us take this through. Maybe we can get Fidel back. Maybe we can get Stephanie. Maybe we can get all of these people in here to reiterate the point. Taxes are not necessary for a life-saving policy like this one.
Nope.
So that's it.
Absolutely not. So we went long today. So
we did.
I'm putting in for overtime, just so you know.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, you're going to have to pay me double for what I did today.
I know. Double of zero is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
it
got
sounds
it,
so
Andy.
much more impressive.
Exactly. So coming up next week, we are packed with guests next week. This week was a little nothing, but next week I am so honored that we are going to have Carrie Kasem as a guest on Monday. Carrie Kasem is the daughter of Casey Kasem. If you're about my age, you know damn well who Casey Kasem was. And
Casey Kasem.
yeah, very good. So his family went through a personal tragedy because of the probate system. This was not widely known, but Carrie was an advocate for her father and then transitioned that into this amazing charity and outreach activism. So we're going to bring her on to continue that discussion about this plague that's going on in the United States. Legalized kidnapping, racketeering, all of this sort of thing is happening, but it's all kind of legal. So we are so proud to welcome her on Monday. And then on Wednesday, we're going to get Rome up out of bed to join us first thing. Poor guy works second shift, but he's got this incredible event coming up next weekend. So we want him to share that information and talk about how he went through it. I mean, this guy is like a force of nature, but this is something that you can duplicate anywhere. And we want him to talk about that. And then on Friday, it looks like we're going to welcome Dre back. Keep it 100 Dre, because this guy, and in my head, I keep saying this kid because he's a lot younger than me, but that's, it almost diminishes him. So don't want to do that. This gentleman who is really shaping up to be a very good journalist, a muckraker. And he's got some new stuff out that I think we really need to cover and talk about, and hope to have you join in that particular conversation. So next week is full of stuff, full of it. That didn't come out right.
Yes. Which is different than our normally being full of it, right?
Yes, exactly. So, all right, Andy, take us out. We're way late.
All right. Well, I'm not going to add anything more, because if I don't end the stream, my dog's going to explode and then I'll have to clean up the mess. So enjoy your Friday, enjoy your weekend, and we will see you here bright and early on Monday morning. Take care, everybody.
We bout that, ayy. We in the zone. We out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog, we keep it G.